I'm a 25-year-old female, and I work at an auto parts store. I've worked at this store for about 3 years now, and I'm only part-time and work a couple of nights per week. Normally, all of the customers are great. I've only had one bad experience. It was about a year ago. I was working one night and working until close, which was 9 p.m. My coworker Dave was working with me, and we were the only ones in the store. Generally, later at night, things were pretty quiet. It was about 8:30 p.m. when I heard the doors open. Soon after, a man walked up and approached me at the front counter of the store. Dave was in the back at the time. The man told me that he thought something was wrong with his car and asked if I could test it for him. We were able to do that, and it was free, so I got the device from behind the counter and followed the man outside the store. When I first got outside, I saw his car because it was the only one in the parking lot other than mine and Dave's. He had parked it in the back, and it looked kind of like a beater. It appeared to be a 2001 Dodge Caravan, except the front passenger side door was a replacement, and it was gray, while the rest of the van was painted red. The hood of the van was also black. The man was fairly short, thin, and wore a red sweatshirt. As I approached the driver's door, the man stopped me and said that the driver's door was broken and you had to enter through the passenger side. I then walked back around and he opened up the door. I got inside and leaned over. I then asked the man for the key to start the engine. Instead of handing me the key though, the man then slammed the door shut behind me. Then he raced around to the front driver's door and opened it up. He got inside the car and I asked him what on earth he was doing. Then the man started the engine and began driving away immediately. He recklessly sped out onto the street. I went to open my door, but there was no door handle from the inside. I asked the man to let me out, but he did not respond. I asked him over and over where we were going and what he was doing. The only thing he ever said was to stay back. I considered trying to overpower him, but he was driving pretty fast and I had no idea what he would do. I was afraid that we would crash. The guy seemed really unpredictable. I glanced back as we were driving and saw that the sliding door actually had a handle on it from the inside. There were also no rear seats in the van at all. The only two seats were the two that we were in. There was some random junk scattered around the back, and it was really cluttered. About a minute later, we slowed down for a red light. As soon as we came to a stop, I quickly moved to the back area of the van. Then, I pulled up the lock and tried the door handle. As I did this, the man started to yell at me, but when I tried the handle, it actually opened. The van then started to move, and I jumped out of it right as it pulled away. I fell to the ground in the middle of the road in front of an intersection. We had been the only vehicle there. The van then slammed on its brakes about 10 feet ahead. I saw the driver's door open and the man emerging. I ran backwards down the road as quickly as I could, and when I did, I noticed headlights and a car was coming down the road. That's when the man stopped his pursuit and headed back to the van. I walked along the side of the road until I had finally made it back to the auto parts store. It took me probably 15 to 20 minutes. I had left my phone in the store. When I made it back, it was just before close. Dave had wondered where I had gone. I told him everything, and he called the police, who came out and asked me a bunch of questions. They were able to locate the man who was driving in the van, which happened to be a stolen vehicle. This happened last spring. It was March, and my car needed a new battery. I went to Advanced Auto Parts to look for a new one. I really don't know that much about cars, just the basics. When I first got inside the store, I remember smelling the smell of rubber tires. I made my way to the area where the batteries were. I started looking at them and researching ones on my phone as well. When I was doing this, I remember that some guy approached me and asked me if I was having battery problems with my car. At first, I thought he worked there, but when I looked up and saw him, I noticed that he didn't. It was just some guy wearing a blue coat and a blue baseball cap. I told him yes, and I was just trying to find a good battery. The guy then started to tell me that he was a mechanic and could work on my car for really cheap if I wanted. This didn't interest me. I just needed a new battery, and I figured he was just trying to get more business and could tell that I didn't know a whole lot about cars. I just kind of said cool, but no thanks. I decided to check a few more auto parts stores for their battery prices. I went to O'Reilly, Napa, and CarQuest. When I was at CarQuest, I was sure that I saw the same guy. However, I left almost as soon as I came in after noticing him. The next day, I decided to go with a battery from Advanced Auto Parts after all. I had compared all the prices and quality and noticed that they had the best ones. I walked into the store and went straight for the battery that I wanted. As I was picking it up, I saw the guy again. He was at the far end of the aisle, and I could tell out of the corner of my eye that he was starting to walk towards me. I did not look in his direction, but just walked to the counter. He didn't follow me up to the counter, and I was able to buy the battery. Then, I left the store, got into my car, and drove away. Right as I was pulling out of the parking lot, though, I noticed a car pulling out right behind me. I glanced in my mirror and was sure that the same guy was driving the car behind me, but he now had sunglasses on. As I drove the 10 minutes back to my house, he followed me the entire ways. I drove all the way to my street, but then realized that I shouldn't let him know where I lived. I drove past my house and then turned onto another street. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just pulled over to the side of the road right there. What I was hoping was that the guy would drive past, but he pulled over behind me. I wasn't going to get out of my car and confront him, but if he was going to get out, I would consider talking to him. I wanted to know what exactly he wanted, and if he started to threaten me, I could just drive away. He didn't get out though. We both sat there in our cars on the side of the road for a good 10 minutes. Finally, he started driving and pulled away. After he passed me, I made a U-turn and drove back to my house. I never saw the guy again. I still wonder a lot of things about what happened there, though. My name is Michael. I used to work at Napa Auto Parts about 5 years ago. I really enjoyed working there. I've always loved cars, and the store I worked at was only about a mile away from my home. Working there was usually not too busy either. I never recall a time where there were more than 10 customers inside at once. One night, I was working with James, my coworker, and everything was going pretty typical. I'd been working there for a while at that time, and was often responsible for closing up. I remember that things were mostly quiet on that night, and after it was time to close, James left to go home. After he had left, I'd stayed back to finish up sweeping, and then went into the back room. That's when I heard a noise back there. There was a decent amount of space in the back. We stored lots of parts back there, and there were shelves all over the place. The noise was a little ways away, not too far. I walked closer and really had no idea what it could be. Then I reached the source of the noise. It was coming from behind a box that was in a corner. I moved the box, which revealed a man crouched down. He had long, stringy hair and was holding some type of auto part in his hands. I was too surprised to realize exactly what part it was. The man pulled the box back, blocking him from my sight again. I took a step back and said, "What are you doing back there?" I kept staring at the box. There was about a 5-second delay, and then the box suddenly was pushed back. A man emerged, holding that same auto part in his hand as if it were a weapon. Obviously, I had nothing to defend myself with. My best move was to get the heck out of there. I backed up as the man began sprinting towards me. I made it back into the store, and then closed the door to the back to try to stop him. I knew that I had to call the police, and I dialed. The man did not enter the store area, but remained in the back. I kept an eye out on the door to the back, but I moved as far away from it as I could. When the police arrived, the man was gone. He must have left out an exit door that we had in the back. I don't believe he was ever found either. The good thing was that he didn't steal anything or do any damage. I really don't know how he got back there though. I guess he just snuck back there when James or I wasn't looking.